Hi everybody, how we doing? As you can tell, this is my voice is almost back to normal. The video that I sent on Thursday didn't sound all that great. Got worse throughout the weekend. Had some crazy stuff happen, so I apologize that I'm getting back to the questions from last week's readings now. But I'm still going to get to them. Hopefully you'll see that the readings from last week and the readings that were due last night, Monday, it kind of dovetailed very well together. So let me jump into these questions and then I'll keep creating more videos, okay? So questions from, do you want to keep your customers forever? Did the lack of a learning relationship and missed technology wave between Microsoft and their customers result in its downfall? Lack of a learning relationship. I'm going to say that the lack of the learning relationship was part of it. I think the bigger part of it was that Microsoft was afraid of cannibalizing itself. And Microsoft was not market oriented in the fact that they were so internally focused that they missed all these various waves in the course of, during the time where Windows 95 killed it, they missed the internet. And during the time when Office was doing really well, early 2000s, and mail and everything, they missed social and they missed search. I'm not sure, because of Microsoft and who they are, that they really listened well either to their partners or to the marketplace. So is that a learning relationship? I think it's less of a learning relationship and more of the lack of the ability for Microsoft to internalize and make any changes within their corporation. I mean, they could see that Apple was coming up with new products. They could see that Google was coming up with new products. They could see how search was going to change circa 2001 and 2002. But they didn't react. They didn't take the threats as credible. I think that's more of their downfall. It's more like they were reading more of their own press. What do you think is holding back companies that have product and services that are clearly lend to mass customization, yet they fail to integrate this approach? That's a fantastic question. As you've heard me say previously, I'm enamored with this idea of mass customization. Really, really am. When Dell, when it's in its prime, oh man, did I really think that was the best model going. The problem with mass customization is it's very complicated. It's not easy to do. I keep thinking that one day, one of the sneaker companies is going to come up with a mass customized model. Think about runners, and I'm a runner, not as diehard as I used to be. But runners are fanatical about their shoes. I'd rather wear size Dano than go to the store and have to figure out what size I am. In addition, if you have an incredible CRM customer service engine, say Zappos or Amazon, and you already have your size, going onto a website and customizing your shoes and having them shipped to you, and they're paid for once they're already shipped, it's really a neat kind of thing to do. It's just that a lot of firms, when we talk about physical goods, there's very few exemplars for mass customization. I mean, we could see it more in software, or we can see it more in that kind of scenario. As supply chains continue to be shrunk and managers by fewer groups, do you think we're heading into a marketplace where the lack of connection to the end user is nearly unheard of? Do you think we're headed to a marketplace where the lack of connection with the end user is nearly unheard of? Nearly unheard of. Nearly unheard of, double negative means unheard of. I don't know. I think there's always going to be a strong connection to the end user, and we still have a lack of connection. Let me just say, I'm going to agree with you here. The connection with the end user is getting stronger and stronger and stronger. not only because companies want it, but we now have the technology to do it. In some B2B scenarios, it might be harder to have that connection to the end user. But even then, I don't think it's still easier to maintain some kind of a blog, online connection, a wiki that you can easily get comments from the end user. I believe I'm a market-oriented guy. I believe we're trending in that direction. Can you argue that by giving a variety of product choices, you're giving everyone what they want? Well, yes. My definition of marketing is find out what people want and give it to them. As long as it's extremely easy to do so and it doesn't put you at any serious competitive advantage, there's no reason why Amazon can't do a better job of finding out what I want than someone else can. And they do a better job of making recommendations that are very, very specific to me. You guys know I read a lot. I read a lot of quirky stuff. Amazon recommends all their quirky stuff to me. It's an efficient model, I think. Is it possible to have customized products in store, or will this basically cater only to customers that order online or is willing to go to the store twice? Either online or app or iPad, or perhaps you go to the store. It may be a product that is complicated enough that you need to consult with someone. You need someone to walk through the process with you. In that scenario, you go to the store twice. Otherwise, you might do everything online. In our instant gamification culture, are customers really willing to wait to get a customized product? Or would they rather settle for something that is a shot of exactly what they wanted so they could have it right away? Please forgive me for saying this, but it depends. It depends on the consumer. I'll go back to my running shoes scenario. I would prefer to wait and have something more specific to me. Do we have an instant culture? Do we have a nanosecond culture? Yes. But if you can tell people what's in it for them, and if it's what's in it for them is to wait a little bit, a couple days, maybe a week, I think they'll do it. Do the following strategies in the article still work today? Does one work better than other in the industry? The following strategies, let me just double check. Do the 4 strategies in the article still work today? I think that, broadly speaking, the idea of one-to-one is coming today. I don't think the way it was conceptualized in the article with regards to, just the technology is so different. And the other thing that we're going to start in last week's articles and then this week's articles is we're going to see that CRM was primarily discussed in terms of B2B and almost always B2B. Where we're starting to see that the technology is so good and so cheap that we can do it in B2C. So that changes a lot of what was talked about in the article. Has social media allowed companies in some of the sectors in the article identified more difficult to develop learning relationships to enter this one-to-one marketing realm, getting feedback from actual customers as opposed to middlemen? Yes. I'm going to agree with this wholeheartedly. I just hinted at it in the previous question. Social media has become the ultimate feedback loop. And it's been that feedback loop that we never had before. We used to have to go out and do the research. We used to have to rely on someone else to get data for us, and then we would hear it through whisper down the lane. Now we can do either a Yammer type situation where it's private in-network, but still directly from the end user, or we could do a Twitter, or we could do a blog, or we could do some kind of social media listening where, we have a broader sample, and we go from there. But I think if you think about strategic reasons why to use social media, you can write this down in your nugget journal. One of the reasons strategically to use social media is as a feedback mechanism. How do companies get the customers to share what kind of content they want? How do the companies get the customer to share what kind of content they want? I mean, heck, Dig does it through by you digging it. You can like something, you could thumbs up something, you can recommend something, you could forward something. Look what Twitter does. I mean, Twitter looks at all the articles that are forwarded into the blogosphere, and then they create trends. What's being said, what, where, and when. It's analytics, really. You could really just see what the mind's hive is thinking, and you could see what articles are being emailed the most, shared the most, liked the most, tweeted the most. Come up with an algorithm. You could have them weighted. You could say Twitter's worth this, and likes are worth this, and Google Pluses, whatever you want to call them, are worth this. You could do it just within LinkedIn. A lot of articles get fed through LinkedIn. How does today's consumer expect customized products and services more than ever given the range of choices? Does today's consumer expect more customized products? I'm not sure that someone is expecting customized products, really. I see very few examples where the mass customization, personalization is actually emphasized by today's marketers. Amazon doesn't do it, actually. eBay doesn't do it, actually. And when I say doesn't do it, they don't promo that as one of the reasons why you should use eBay or Amazon. Netflix doesn't. They just say they want to give you better service. And by giving you better service, they're going to make recommendations. I'm not sure the reason for why that, but that's my perspective. How do you manage one-to-one marketing costs? The same way you manage any other marketing costs. I have an ROI mentality. I care very much about how much money I put in and what I get out. And I think it's easier to track ROI through digital means. I have no idea what my ROI is for that billboard. I know how much it costs, but I don't know what I'm getting in return. But if I do a Google either SEO or SEM campaign, I know exactly what I put in or how much I'm paying per click, and I know how much revenue I'm getting at the bottom of that funnel. So you manage it the way you would manage any kind of an ROI calculation. What if a customer with whom a company has determined it is worth building a learning relationship with does not want their preferences learned or buys products in no discernible pattern? I.e., sometimes they're an e-commerce store. Now, in the U.S., some things you have to opt in, but there's a lot of other things where we can learn, indirectly. We can learn secondhand. Now, even if we learn those relationships and we learn certain information about, say, Dr. Dano, and Dr. Dano doesn't explicitly want to get into a CRM database with you, you could still target Dr. Dano with things that Dr. Dano would like, even though he did not necessarily agree to, You're doing marketing messages. You could do more one way to see if you can develop the relationship that way. Sometimes if there's no discernible pattern and they're not interested, well then guess what? We've seen the other toolkit articles. It's a better ROI to develop learning relationships with customers that actually want them. Aren't there flaws in using technology to learn what a consumer wants? I.e., I get ads on the internet for orthopedic surgeons because I research for those works, but I have no need for an orthopedic surgeon. Yes, the technology is not perfect. It's getting significantly better. I mean, Google just had its 15th anniversary the other day, and they launched a dramatic new update that's, the first one in 3 years. Google is trying to get better at a conversation. They almost want search to be a conversation as opposed to a discrete search each time you do something. And what that means by that is if I search for Super Bowl 2014 stadium, right? And then my next search is about tickets. Google's now going to start making inferences that the tickets that I want are probably for the Super Bowl that I just queried for in the previous question. So the technology is getting better. Is there flaws in it? Sure, there's flaws in it. But still, the fact that you work for orthopedic surgeons, even though you may not need one, it's closer than you seeing ads for orthopedic surgeons versus you seeing ads for kayaking in Tibet when you have no interest in kayaking in Tibet. But yet this is what happens on the radio. This is what happens on TV. They just throw ads up there and guess that it's something you're going to be interested in. This is at least closer. Is customization a slippery slope? What if a customer becomes so demanding there's no way to meet their needs? Won't expectations continue to rise? Let me think about that. Maybe if you set boundaries on the front end, let's say I'm New Balance and I want to customize sneakers and do mass customization for sneakers. Well, obviously sneakers can't fly. Sneakers can't make you run faster. They may be demanding, but which way are they demanding? Are they asking for things that don't exist? Can you make it clear in the customization process that these are the parameters you can customize, not weight of the shoe? The weight of the shoe is always going to be the same. There's no way to uncustomize that. So maybe as long as the firm is clear on the front end to what is customizable and not, they can avoid some of the slippery slope. Which division of corporation is best suited for determining which customers they should focus their learning relationship on? I think multiple divisions, to be honest with you. And the three that I'm going to put out very quickly is a cross-functional team with finance, with marketing, and IT. So if you have IT helping us with the technological infrastructure, you have marketing people with the knowledge of the products, the services, and the consumers and consumer behavior, and you add finance with the rigorous, accounting that is needed to determine ROI, then you have a market-oriented type external view towards developing a learning relationship. Multi-divisional, no silos. Don't like silos. How do you build a learning relationship with your customers through a new social media like Twitter? The funniest thing about Twitter to me is so few people use it to actually have a conversation. You tend to tweet broadcasts like, beep, 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 beep. Hey, I'm here. Look at me in my picture on South Beach. Great. But that's not really the best way to use Twitter. The best way to think about Twitter is a community. Your community. The people that follow you are your community, and you're sort of like the mayor of your community. As a mayor, you want to be able to interact with everybody that's in your community. You should send them a message out, but at the same time, you should be listening to their conversations to see, well, how can I add value to that? Now, some people can do this just within Twitter and just with their followers, but if you have 50,000 followers, you can't do it like that. You could use some kind of social media listening tool like Hootsuite, Radiant6, Spreadfast, Trax, Tracx, which is based in New York City, which is who the Super Bowl is using for the upcoming Super Bowl. If you Google social media listening in YouTube, actually go to YouTube, type in Social Media Command Center, you'll find a bunch of Radiant6 videos. One from Clemson is really good and how they do it with their sports teams. Look up the University of Oregon and ducks and the duck cave. That's a really good way to see how someone builds a learning relationship through social media and platforms like Twitter. The benefits. Do the benefits of acquiring individualized data from each customer outweigh the cost of technology systems that actually do the work and produce the mass customizations? I'm not going to pass on this question because I don't know on the manufacturing side, how much the costs are. But on the individualized data and technology systems side, okay, this part, in the second week CRM articles, there's a lot of discussion about the cost of CRM systems and how they go into the millions and millions and millions of dollars. It's not millions and millions and millions of dollars anymore. As a matter of fact, it's fractions of that, and even to the point where in the back in the day with a CRM system, you had to buy it all. You had to buy the software, the hardware, the da-da-da-da. Now, almost all of it's outsourced. I mean, you could use Salesforce. Salesforce does everything, and you're just buying a user license for the interface on your phone. So the data part of it, the technology system part of it is, I feel very comfortable about the costing. The manufacturing side, the operation side, I don't know that side of it. But it has to be high enough that not enough people do it. How does a company identify with customers from whom it pays to have a relationship? Is it simply by lifetime value and loyalists and sales data? I think these are some of the metrics that they use. We saw another metric, referral value. There might be other metrics like frequency of purchase or size of shopping cart or percentage of shopping cart versus your product versus other products in, say, a case like Amazon. You know, people might use Amazon, but how much of it are they buying products from Amazon and how much are they buying products from their resellers? You know, could it be something more about who provide reviews on information that you purchase? There's a lot of people that use Amazon that just do nothing but do product reviews within Amazon. There are multiple data. There's multiple ways to have a relationship. It depends on what's important for the company. This is another article that states to focus efforts on the best customers first, establishing learning relationships with them. There must be something else besides word of mouth, particularly a perk from the company that drives a new customer to try a new product or service. What is it? Is there any incentive for a new customer? Sure, you know, there are companies that try to goose. I mean, look at the Toolkit article that we had. In the Toolkit article, they provided a $10 incentive. They provided free service for an extra month. I mean, think about someone like Comcast, where if you get other people to sign up, they'll give you a discount for the following month. There's other way to induce the word of mouth. You know, perks. With all the information available, why do companies still use mass marketing? Because it's cheap. It's cheap. It's not as effective, but it's cheap. If you need to reach 30 million consumers within a day, there's no better way to do it than a TV ad. And relatively speaking, the TV ad is cheap. The downside to the TV ad is you don't know if you've actually reached them or not. You know, but yes, snail mail, it's relatively cheap, and you still get a return. Spam email, it's extremely cheap, and there is some kind of return. I just think that, you know, and it sounds goofy to use this as an example. Let's say you're looking for the love of your life. Well, you don't just email the whole universe saying, yeah, I'm looking for the love of my life. You know, and that's what mass marketing does. You need to be able to target. I think a more individualized approach is the best way to go. There's less waste. Which form of marketing, mass or customization, is generally more expensive? Oh, this is more expensive. This is more expensive. I think if you look at this question, the first question with the second question, I don't think the cost is the bigger issue. I think the time amount spent in the mass customization, in the one-to-one individualized personalization, the amount of a learning curve for a company to get involved with that before they can start maximizing on their relationship, I think that's the bigger hurdle. I think there are too many companies that are under pressure that, because they're under pressure and because they have to do things quick, they go to mass not because of the cost, but because of speed. How has mass customization changed since this article in 1995? Conceptually, as described in these articles, it hasn't changed very much. I think the biggest change is the cost. The information technologies that were used in 1995 versus now are ridiculously cheaper. Is CRM an updated form of mass customization? No. CRM is a philosophy. And this philosophy, you can't have, in my opinion, you can't have mass customization unless you have a learning relationship. Unless you have a CRM mentality, a customer lifetime value mentality. If you don't have a CRM mentality, if you don't have a customer lifetime mentality, if you don't have a learning relationship mentality, this is a major problem. Mass customization. Are more companies integrating customer and capable managers to help build learning relationship? Yes. The best jobs, some of the hottest jobs you get right now are, they're sort of like infotech people. It's an information systems person that knows an awful lot about consumer behavior and customer tastes. Mold those together. They go to a company like a Target or a CVS. They work on your loyalty card data, and they create products and coupons that are exactly tailored towards you. Those are people in very high demand at the moment. Can all businesses implement a one-to-one marketing strategy? No. And there's a number of examples in the articles that we have this week that there are scenarios that, low involvement, low price, high frequency, Coca-Cola, for instance, it's harder to do a one-to-one strategy with these. Higher value, higher customization type scenarios are easier to do a one-to-one marketing type scenario with. Do companies that have implemented the strategy usually apply it incrementally by business unit, or do they do it company-wide? Either business unit or product line. I'm trying to think company-wide. Usually when it's company-wide, it's part of the identity of the company. Like, Netflix has no choice because everything they do is the same way, and that happens to be company-wide. How they approach one customer is how they approach all customers. Therefore, how they do the customization and the one-to-one strategy happens to be company-wide. But Nike doesn't do it company-wide. Nike has the Nike ID, and Converse has it too, and it's really done by a business unit. A certain product line has the one-to-one strategy. How difficult is it to encourage companies to implement a one-to-one approach, even though yields may not be seen for a year or two as the database and behaviors? It's extremely difficult. And as I mentioned previously, I don't think it's the costs of it. I think it's the time aspect. If you were to go to a company like Nokia and say, okay, Nokia, it's going to take a year or two to get these learning behavior and the database up before it's rich enough before we can really start capitalizing on it. Well, guess what? Nokia doesn't have a year or two. RIM doesn't have a year or two. Some companies, because of, shareholder and Wall Street pressure, they don't have a year or two. And because of that, they never start. And because of that, they're always mass marketing and pushing. Are marketing materials like weekend circulars for retailers, such as grocery stores, electronic stores, going to become obsolete as this data-driven one-to-one approach takes over? Well, I had one of these companies on campus last spring. Okay, Velasys, and you've never heard of Velasys, but Velasys is is the second largest circular input. The Sunday paper. Guess what? There's two companies that do all that stuff. They're one of them. It's an over $1 billion firm. They are mindful that the newspaper might not be around forever, and they are developing electronic products that do relatively the same thing. They are developing both in-app and out-of-app i.e. they have their own branded thing, but they also have programs to insert stuff into ads, either native or ad banner wise, into other things to be able to target you the way they target you with the Sunday paper. Is it going to be obsolete? I think so. I really do. I mean, I know the companies that are doing this stuff are shifting in case it does. Is it possible that a company is so large that even customizing towards the top 2% becomes a big task? Perhaps, but if you have the top 2% and they are such an enormous percentage of your overall revenues, you'll customize regardless of the cost. You have to. Are there any privacy information issues with having one system throughout the entire company and all employees have access to it? Oh, hell yeah. Yes. And usually in these firms, not all employees have access to everything. And even if they have access to it, there's certain fields they can see and certain fields they cannot see. A lot of the CRM firms, Salesforce and the such, they actually are doing a much better job with the privacy and who has access and who doesn't have access. How has the one-to-one gap tool changed since it evolved in 1999 and was written? This tool is actually very specific to these two authors, Peppers and Rogers. They're big-time consultants. They were hired by a lot of firms. It's a proprietary tool. This is only a sort of framework for it. So, to be honest with you, unless you hire them, you don't know what the tool is. I'll just keep going back to the same thing I've said earlier, is that the technology is cheaper. It's much easier to do now. Back in the day, you needed a terminal and you needed a mainframe. And now we can do it all through one of these devices. Really. Mobile. In the cloud. If the top 2% of your customers generate 50% of your profit, you can protect your bottom line by fostering learning relationships with the most profitable ones. But if the top 20% of your customers make up 50% of your profit, then it is 10 times as costly to achieve the bottom line. Why is this, and is it a proven fact? Oh, hell yeah, it's a proven fact. Think about this. Just do the numbers in your head. Say you have 100 customers. 2% of your customers means 2 customers generate 50% of your profit. How many people do you need working on the accounts for the 2 customers? How much attention? If 20% of your customers make up 50% of your profit, now you have 20 companies. Think about how much more personnel you need to deal with 20 companies versus 2 companies. Actually, I even think we're going to see some of these examples come out in the articles for the second week. Is it fair to link compensation heavily to customer service when not all positions lend themselves to that structure? All right, this one I am going to take a pass with. This is a very complicated topic. Compensation and reward structure, who gets it, and how do you measure what they did and what they didn't do with regards to customer service? Customer service is not a revenue-generating position. It's not a sales position. This is really something a little bit beyond my knowledge at the moment. I apologize for saying it that way, but I don't have a good HBR article for you for this topic. Or any article from anywhere else for that matter. Which companies were the most successful in implementing this strategy since this article was written? Well, the examples I keep coming back to, I think Target and I think CVS are doing a fantastic job with their loyalty card. Kroger's doing a very, very good job as well. In the online world, I don't think anybody's better than Amazon or Netflix. What is the major difference between direct marketing and one-to-one marketing? Is it simply that one-to-one marketing focuses on what the customer wants? Direct marketing is the older school marketing terminology for it's still basically a one-way kind of relationship. Direct marketing back in the day would be sending an individual mail piece to your house. It's one way. Sending a catalog to your house. Now, direct marketing used to, maybe there was a 1-800 number in the catalog that you would call back to place orders. So there was a little bit of a feedback loop. But when we talk about one-to-one marketing, this is really a relationship. This is a back and forth. This is a quid pro quo. This may or may not have been a quid pro quo. And one-to-one isn't necessarily used all that often very much anymore, because we tend to use the more digital or social or Web 2.0 type terminology. But don't get hung up by the terminology. Think about it more as a relationship. Is CRM a process or a product that is implemented? In my opinion, CRM is a philosophy, a process, a way of thinking, right? CRM is often sold as a product, and I love to use this example. So CRM is the mentality of maintaining relationships with your existing customers. Existing customers are more profitable. Existing customers do pro-social behaviors, such as positive word of mouth. You've heard all that spiel from me, okay? That is a philosophy, a strategy, a way of thinking. It's the same way I think about market orientation. It's a strategy, it's a philosophy, it's a way of thinking. CRM is often sold as a product, though. If you buy this software, you will have CRM. And it's a way that CRM products are marketed. We can solve your customer relationships problems by buying the software. CRM is not software. CRM is not a product. It is a philosophy. And I'd like you to think about it this way. Any of you have a friend that's an asshole? Complete idiot? Does Facebook make them any less than an asshole? No. They're an asshole in real life, and they're an asshole on Facebook. Now, I'm sure you're laughing as I say this, but Facebook does not fix their asshole problem. The same way, if a company does not have relationships with its customers, that doesn't have the philosophy of CRM, of relationship building, a product is not going to fix that. Software is not going to fix that. A database is not going to fix that. They're still assholes. It appears that the focus on CRM is to retain customers. Agreed. How does CRM apply to attracting to new customers? Is there a lack of where there is a definite lack of particular preferences and needs? Well, I think CRM could, we saw in our toolkit articles that we can use the CRM system to use our existing advocates for us to find new customers. That is the more preferential, a referral type methods for us to generate new customers. But CRM really is about growing our business from within first. I think that's the right way to think about it, or the more the reserved view. Is it too ambitious to think that you will be able to accommodate every individual customer's need and concerns? I don't think it's too ambitious for you to be able to know what everybody's individual needs and concern is. In the past, that was difficult to find out. We didn't have the technology, we didn't have the listening mechanisms. We do now. Will you be able to accommodate for them all? Well, it depends on what you want to do, and it depends what you're offering. I mean, if you have software that is easily customizable, then guess what? Give them a framework and let them customize it to exactly the way they want. Think about, I'm a big fan of these 3D printers, the MakerBot movement. Do a Google search forget a Google search. Go to YouTube, type in 3D printers and look up some of these things. This is a spectacular way for mass customization, is making it circle all the way back to us. And then, guess what? You're providing a framework for the individual consumer to be able to accommodate themselves. That's awesome. How do you quantify a substantial portion of a customer's most valuable customers? Well, you decide what the metric is that is valuable. Is it revenue per customer? Is it frequency of purchase? Is it customers that pay on time? Is it customers that pay early? Is it customers that find new customers for you more than anyone else? You have to decide what the metric is that you're quantifying. Isn't the most cost-efficient channel for interaction with customer social media at this point? Yes. This question came up earlier, and I agree. I mean, heck, you can go buy Hootsuite or Spreadfast and pay less than $100 and $200 a month, and you could skim the whole internet, all of it, all social media. It's amazing. In real time, almost too, by the way. Meet that customer's individuals' expressed needs. How can you reasonably expect to do that? Meet a customer's individually expressed needs. How do you expect to do that? Well, if we really know what they want on a very deep level, then yes. The harder part is being able to sift through the data to make sure that what are they complaining about and what do they really want. You hear the quotes from Steve Jobs all the time is, I hate marketing. I hate marketing research. I don't do marketing research. Customers don't know what they want. I tell them what they want. Blah, 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 blah. No. Apple does an awful lot of listening. But what Apple does better than other companies is they read in between the lines. A lot of people may be complaining about speed, but it's not necessarily speed that they're complaining about. They're complaining about how the interface doesn't open the right way. And because of that, it's laggy, and therefore that's why they're complaining about speed. Listening's not easy. A one-to-one marketing campaign is a huge undertaking. Would a consulting company focus solely on one-to-one marketing to be a useful tool for companies? I don't know about solely, but there are some firms that this is the best way to go. The steeper the skew, the more you have a smaller set of customers. Yes, I'm a bigger fan of one-to-one. If you are in a mass customization type world, then I'm a big fan of one-to-one. How do you manage the costs? I think I've answered this question pretty good. By using technologies to interact with customers and collect customer data, don't you lose some of the nuances of customer needs? I'm not sure you would lose anything. The more data you have, the more you learn, the more you'll be able to nuance needs are. Usually what good firms do is they start collecting data, they have questions, they learn more information to fill in what those questions are, and then based on that, they take another big picture view of it and say, okay, what are we missing? We collect more data on things that we're missing, and the relationship building gets stronger. Think about your friends that you have a really strong relationship with. It's over time, through many situations, that you've learned, this is my friend, this is what I know about them. What is the best method to distribute all the data from every touch point so you're up to date with your customer and client in every transaction? Is it a dashboard? Dashboards is a very big buzzword at the moment. I see a lot of C-suite executives asking for dashboards all the time. When we think of a dashboard, think about your car, and you think about the tachometer and the speedometer, and you think about how that works. You say, how much gas do I have? A quick look. I've seen social media dashboards, and it's not like you're seeing a gas tank thing saying, do I have a lot of gas or do I not have a lot of gas? I mean, a function of how many people are talking or liking about your brand at any given moment is a nice metric, but what you do with that metric is the more important thing. So I'm not sure the dashboard is necessarily the answer yet. I've seen a lot of social media dashboards. I've seen a lot of them where people look at them and say, okay, now what do I do? So what if everything's on one screen? I think it's less about seeing it all at one time than it is more about being able to make valuable decisions going forward based on information that's coming in. All right, we're switching. New article. How much does this article correlate to the power of LinkedIn influence individuals or high clout scores? That's a good question. Obviously, this article predates that kind of a mentality. I think it's more of, from a mental model, you're in the ballpark. You're thinking that way. I know that there are a lot of marketing firms that are using the clout scores as a way of segmenting customer populations. I know many marketers that are using the clout scores as a way to amplify something. For instance, Virgin America looked at really high clout score people in San Francisco, and they basically gave them first class tickets to go to LA for the weekend. And they only did it for people that had a really high clout score. It's called a clout perk. Knowing that if you have a really high clout score and they give you this ticket and you go have fun, chances are you're going to beep, 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 about the brand. There are a number of hotels in Vegas that when you check in, besides your points or your loyalty card for that particular hotel, they're asking for your clout score. They will comp you based on your clout score because they know the power that you can amplify. Even if every customer only brought in 2 more customers, wouldn't this create a significant effect, creating exponential growth? Well, some ways, yes. You remember that there is cost every time. Hopefully there's strong enough margin over above the cost it takes to bring in the extra customers. I mean, that's what I think the author of this article is trying to get at here. Author of this article. Would the study have yielded different results in another market that may have been more fluent, such as clothing retail? Yes. You notice that if you look at the industries that they looked at, there's some lock-in to, yes, you could still switch, but it's harder to switch. Financial services, telephone services. That's a harder switch than, say, clothing retail. So yes, I think there would be different results. Maybe it will be cheaper to market to the people in clothing retail compared to these other customers, but the examples that they used are scenarios where you tend to have a more consistent and loyal customer base. If you focus all your efforts on moving misers to other categories, since they're the highest percentage move, would the other categories end up downgrading? That's a good question. Would the overall percentage move in different directions? Of course, it's got to move somewhat, but I don't know if it would be a drastic move. One of the points that I want to get to, that based on an article from 2 weeks ago, it may be too expensive to move a miser to another category. If you think about it, if there's some people that are not loyal, the amount of effort, time, and money that you have to put in to get them to become loyal may not be worth it. Think about a scale of 1 to 10. To make someone who's a 7 extremely loyal at 10 versus making someone who's a 3 extremely loyal at 10 takes a lot more time and effort to move the 3 than the 7. So, my thought is I don't know if you want to move all the misers. Is it really worth it or not? Is the word of mouth best form of advertising? I feel uncomfortable by saying absolute best because it depends on what your strategy is. Word of mouth is one of the most cost effective, in my opinion. Word of mouth is one of the best in forms of two-way interaction. I don't think it's absolute best in all scenarios. It depends on what you want to get done. Word of mouth tends to be one of the slowest. If you want speed, word of mouth is not speed. What can be done to improve your word of mouth? I apologize for the gigantic pause in last week's video. It was impromptu. I got to listen to my recommendations that are coming in, and I should pause the video if I'm going to go look for books. But those books that I pulled out, I mean, there's multiple ways to improve your word of mouth. You find the connectors. You find the influencers. You can create a better story. This could be a video all by itself. And any of the books that I recommended in last week's video, the last video, yes. You can use them to improve your word of mouth. If you have a specific thing that with this question with work, shoot me an email about this, and then maybe I can help narrow that down a little bit, but that's a little bit too broad at the moment. Are there any industries where this strategy might not work, where customer referrals are not helpful? Yes. There are many scenarios where the further it is the end user may not be the decision maker. If you think about B2B buying, the end user may not be the decision maker. Someone else is the decision maker, and someone else has to agree to it, and someone else has to pay for it. The more that there's in B2B scenarios where they call it a buying center, the harder it is that word of mouth alone will help you. There's a lot of gatekeepers involved. Are there specific companies that would not benefit from this? Yes, companies that have high turnover, companies that have low involvement product, that switching costs are extremely low, that frequency of purchase is extremely high, then you don't spend the time and effort to do something like this. This scenario in this article works best when you have a customer base, bank, financial services, telecom, that kind of scenario. In the study, the best referrals had remarkably low purchasing values. How can this be profitable? Class, this was an anomaly, to be honest with you. Maybe anomaly is not the right way to say it. I was very surprised by this finding, because this goes contrary to popular wisdom. But the metrics are there. Some of the best referral people had low purchasing values. Maybe they had low purchasing values, but they were so interested in the incentive that the incentive made them a very strong person to refer other people. And the other bigger fish, the higher rollers that are further up the totem pole, that you think that they had higher loyalty, they're already the goosing, the incentive for them to do it. Guess what? It wasn't that big of an incentive. Is it that much to gain in referrals with a big business? Okay, I kind of did that right there. Is there a standardized means to establish the marketing cost per customer? No. I don't believe that there's a standardizing means, because what you do marketing-wise per company, per strategy, per division, per product could vary. How much it costs to convert a customer and what you want to do. No. You have to see what your company uses. You have to see what your company cares about metrics-wise, financial-wise. And then you come up with what is the norm for your firm to think about acquisition cost for a customer. The article used like $10. $10 might be extremely low for what you guys spend on a trade meeting to attract sales, to attract customers. It could be extremely high that you spend 10 cents a customer. It depends. Is the customer referral value measure depends on estimating a variety of customer behaviors? Is this measure accurate enough to use? Well, I think the article clearly demonstrated that it was accurate enough to use. Is it flawless? No, it's not flawless, but it's certainly strong enough to use that if we do use it, there is a measurable effect. And considering how, I think they spent less than $100,000, and they got $100,000 in additional revenue, and they spent a third of that. I'm not looking at the numbers exactly in front of me, but Yes. I think it's accurate enough to use. There was an effect. Yeah. Can these findings really be broadly applied if only 2 companies were studied? Can they really be broadly applied? I think they're worth experimenting with more, yes. I think that there's enough diversity in telecom and financial services that these are different industries. Would we expect the same exact results that we got in the article? Perhaps not. But could you template what was used in the article and use it in a different industry? I think we could. I actually recommended that we should try. Is the incentivizing customers with savings the most effective way to increase word of mouth? I feel very uncomfortable to say that this is the best way. I have a problem with saying that there's only one best way. I keep coming back to the same thing. It depends on what your goals are. It depends on what you want to accomplish. That's going to determine what's best, and then what would be most effective way to accomplish that goal. In B2B markets, in fast-moving consumer goods markets, how can managers let consumers to make more referrals to their friends? I hate to say it, but we need to make it easy for them to make referrals to their friends. Something as simple as if there's an app and the app integrates easily with Twitter, that you can easily generate a link. I listened to a podcast, and they created a little software program that all you have to do is go into Twitter and type in 3 things, and it self-populates itself, and it goes out to all your Twitter followers, and it says exactly what it does through like a bit.ly link. If you make it easy, or the easier you make it, the more people you will, the more people will then use that referral service or word of mouth. If the costs, time and effort are too tall, no one's going to do it. If the cost, time and effort are extremely low, you'll get higher participation for referral. How can companies prevent fake referrals from people who are not interested in the product? Oh boy, this is a big can of worms. I think if you do a Google search, that something like half of the stuff on Amazon, the product reviews, are fake. A third of the ones in Yelp are fake. There's lots. This is, you think of the upsides of the wisdom of crowds, Web 2.0 movement. This is one of the downsides. Everybody's allowed to state their own opinion, but at the same time, there's no authority to say, well, what is real and what is not real. They put the onus on the individual user to determine whether this referral is in fact useful or not, and implying whether it's genuine or not. It's easier to get the information, but the consumer has to do more interpretation on their own. Before, if you read something in the New York Times, well, the New York Times is an authority. That's not the case anymore. Everybody's an authority now, and you have to decide whose authority is more important. Besides B2B customers, in what circumstances would CRM not be relevant? I think I'm the same CRV and CRM. I would bucket these together and go back to the answer I said earlier. Lower involvement, low frequency, lower involvement, high frequency of repurchase, low purchase price, Coca-Cola kind of scenario. Bubblegum. What do companies do for those who are already in the champion category in order for them to remain there? That's a very good question. I'm thinking that if you have the champion category, right, and you need them to stay there, the worst thing you could do is stop listening to them. The worst thing you could do is stop providing value to them, stop incentivizing them. Just because you have someone there doesn't mean they're going to stay there forever. You'd keep doing things to make sure they stay there forever. Whatever incentives work, whatever communications work, Do you have a member night only? A member event night only? Do you give them free tickets to something? Don't ignore them. Don't stop providing value just because they're in the champions category. All right, I believe we have 2 articles left. Business Horizons here. Long title. What are the key drivers that cause videos to go viral? Are there any statistics on what types of videos go viral? Yes, there's lots of statistics on what types of video goes viral. The book that I recommended before, I'm sorry I'm doing this. This is the whole book. This is Contagious, Jonah Berger. That's all this book does. You know, he calls it a, you know, the other book calls it a story, success, SECESS, and each one is an acronym for the things that help things go viral. What happens is, you know, things go viral. People will promote something if it makes them look good. That's one of the findings from the book. I will forward something if forwarding this makes me look smart. Or makes me look good because I'm sending something that makes you laugh, humor. You know, you find those persuasive keys and you'll have something that will go viral. How does a marketer go about, if, again, this is a pretty broad bucket. If you have something more specific or you're doing something at work, shoot me an email. I can make even more specific recommendations. How does a marketer go about selecting that foundational 20% to generate viral marketing piece outside an abstract of a market maven? Other than testing with your customers, you know, the best way to go viral is by people who naturally talk things up anyway. I'm not sure I can think of a way other than going through mavens, connectors, you know, influencers. You know, think about a book. What do books do? You open a book, and there's nothing but recommendations from other famous authors. And what does that do? That provides credibility that the book is actually real. What do you look at a movie? Is this a good movie to see? Rolling Stone gives it 3 thumbs up. You know, these are the levers of persuasion. You use the levers of persuasion. You know, this is Robert Cialdini's book. These persuasion elements provide credibility that, yes, this is the real deal. Therefore, it's something that it's worth me recommending to someone else that hopefully it might go viral. Is there an example of a market maven? Individuals have access to a large amount of marketplace information. What is an example of a market maven? You know, just think about yourself. Think about your friends, okay? You have some friend who's just an absolute car nut. If you have a car question, what kind of car should I buy? What kind of this is a new car? You go ask them. You have a friend that's just a fashionista. You know, you need to go buy new clothes. You take her with you because she knows. I'm Mr. All Things Apple. You want to know anything about Apple? You know, that's me. Talk to me. I'm a maven for certain topics. You know, you have friends that are they just know. They're experts. You trust them. You know, time and time again, they're that knowledgeable. Guess what? They're mavens. Which are more damaging to a brand? Nightmares or homemade issues? Let me just go back. They both suck. Usually, you know, they both suck. Homemade or self-inflicted. Nightmares might be something so dysfunctional to your company, you may not be able to recover it very quickly from. You know, it's easy to shut down the homemade issue with the blog. You could say, oh, my mistake. But the nightmare, This is an operational problem that JetBlue had, and they couldn't fix it. And it took them a very long time to fix it. So I guess I'm leaning more towards nightmares. They both suck. Does Dunbar's number still apply in the world of social media networks? It would seem that with the aid of social networks, in the last video I said, I implied that I think this is a little dated with regards to social media. We have technologies and steroids or medicine or whatever you want to call it that makes us be able to go beyond the 150 number. Think of how LinkedIn, you could have 150 coworkers, you could have 150 schoolmates, you could have 150 relatives, you name it. You know the categories that you can segment your contacts in. You can have segments of 150. And within each segment of 150, you'll be able to remember or maintain a relationship with those 150. Are there other pieces of the marketing mix that works best with viral marketing? I keep coming back to promo. Everything that I think of is within promo. The other P's, place or distribution, no. Price, no. Product, service, probably not. It's all within promo. Promo is within event marketing, PR, sales, professional selling, that is. Viral marketing tends to be a function of promo. How do you determine the right host for a viral marketing campaign? The right hosts? I think I got to, this was a similar question that was up here. These days, I lost this. Let's say you have a Twitter, you have 15,000 followers. There are many off-the-shelf software packages that you can buy that looks at activity of your followers. You can literally go to a web page, type in your Twitter handle, and based on your Twitter handle, you can see of the 15,000 people following you, how many people have retweeted you, how many people have recommended you, how many people have talked about you and someone else, how many people from a network through one of their networks, one or two deviations away, how many people never retweeted you at all. In other words, you can find metrics for activities or pro-social behaviors, and that's where I would start. Is there a market segment that works better than others for viral marketing? Is there a market segment that works better than, perhaps. Existing customers works better than, loyal customers that repeat purchase, customers that have been with you longer. Find out which one is the better one for your firm and ride them. Seed them. Are there ways you approach viral market different with different forms of social media? Yes, absolutely. Because the social media works differently. What you can do within Facebook, not only the rules in terms of service of Facebook versus the rules of terms and services with Twitter, but also how that particular social network functions is different. Twitter now has location and Facebook now has location, but for a long time only Foursquare had location. This was the only social network that really was focusing on location-based type social networking. Earlier this year, Facebook started to use hashtags. Before, hashtags was only a function of Twitter. So each social network has its own unique quirks. A pin is not the same thing as a like. A pin in Pinterest is not the same thing as a like. And Pinterest drives more traffic across the internet than a lot of other social networks. The Dunbar number refers to individuals having the ability to maintain stable social relationships with 150. Is that really feasible? Just to rehash very quickly, yes, it's very feasible. Yes, it's been proven in dozens and dozens and dozens of academic papers. And I believe that this needs to be re-examined based on what we know about social media, because we now have a technology that should help us maintain more than 150 relationships. Are the people referred to as part of the messengers, salespeople in the organization that are intervening in the campaign, or are salespeople just a term to use to describe a group involved in sending the message? In this article, I think it's more metaphorically when they're talking about people used to help spread a message. Not as in the professional selling aspect or sales management aspect, that these guys are or ladies are people within the organization that are in charge with revenue generation. The Sony, not a market-oriented firm, hasn't been market-oriented for a very, very long time, case resulted in a lot of press for the company, even though the attention was negative. Can the campaign still said to be a success? No such thing as bad press. No, this was a disaster, because the campaign did not do what it was intended to do. The overall objective of the campaign was not met. Therefore, it was not a success. We did not get more people to buy PlayStation Portable because of this viral campaign on the blog. As a matter of fact, more people made fun. The overall outcome of what happened because of the homemade issue backfired. Now, if the goal of the campaign is just to make a lot of noise, then there's no such thing as bad press. If you think about the PR handlers and the marketing strategy people for Miley Cyrus right now, okay, I think their objective was noise. Their objective was, okay, no one's talking about Miley Cyrus right now. Let's get people to talk about Miley Cyrus right now. That's the goal. Whether people actually liked what Miley Cyrus did, they didn't care. And in that type of a scenario, it doesn't make any difference if it was bad press, as long as it was press. Oh, let's see. Let's get more people to talk about her. Let's have her take all her clothes off in a music video. Then we'll get people to start saying, oh my God, what is she doing next? It worked. More press. The goal wasn't to get good press. The goal was to get press. So you be outrageous. It doesn't have to be pretty. And guess what? The song debuted at number 1. Everybody was talking about it. Everybody's talking about her. All the press resulted in what they wanted. A lot of it was bad. A lot of it was bashing. But she's the central conversation at the moment in the music industry. Believe it or not. In that case, mission accomplished. Where do the nuggets get generated for great viral campaigns? Within the corporation or throughout the advertising agencies? Hey, I'm a Web 2.0 individual. Okay? I believe the best nuggets come from the crowd. You're going to see in an article for the following week, Doug Holt is a genius, okay? And he would recommend the best campaigns are ones that are crowd generated. That you take something from the crowd, like this is what Harley Davidson does. Harley Davidson gets all their awesome ideas from what people are already doing to their bikes. And then they make it a Harley Davidson thing. That way the corporation or the ad agency isn't telling the crowd what should be viral. It's looking to see what's popular within the crowd and then amplifying that. I think that's a better idea. When and where to launch the viral marketing campaign is a trickling business. How can managers make the right plan? It all goes back to the objectives and what you want to accomplish. Based on your objectives, you decide how you want things operationalized. And I've had a number of examples that we've talked about so far today. What is the shelf life of a viral marketing campaign? How long can you truly expect it to last? That's a good question. Some of these happen, usually these are slow builders. Some of these things keep recurring again and again and again, though. There's something that, there's an example in the Contagious book about a very bad viral video that has the word Friday in it, and every Friday, because it has the word Friday in it, this thing spikes. You know, it's been 2 years. You know, so in some ways, yes, these things still last. In some ways, yeah, they have their cycles. They're more faddish than not. It's more of a fad than a trend. It like sort of amplifies quicker than expected, but also dies quicker than expected. Is Twitter or Facebook more efficient at word-of-mouth transportation of information? It depends. I think it's more of a function of who's starting it. You know, someone who's more of a maven starting something on Facebook would be more effective than someone who's not a maven starting it on Twitter. In general, though, Twitter is more about immediacy. And Twitter is more about the moment and now. At the same time, something on Twitter dies faster than it does on Facebook. Are there people designated at companies to create viral campaigns? Absolutely yes. Do you guys remember the Super Bowl last year? There was a little bit of a blackout. Well, the agency 360i, which is Oreos, not surprised, they were sitting there doing things all game long, and they capitalized on you can always dunk an Oreo in the dark on Twitter. And it exploded. There were people there at the company waiting for something to happen and doing things. Yes. Is there any way to create a viral to recreate a viral campaign? For instance, is there a particular viral campaign that works extremely well? Would a different company be able to learn from that and try again? Yes. Can you benchmark viral campaigns? Yes. Can you take some of these principles and use them again and again? Yes. Because making someone look good or making someone funny or doing something along those lines works. You know, it works. What makes a great tweet? Can you name a company or a brand you think does really well on Twitter? Off the top of my head, I don't have one. But the idea, in my opinion, with Twitter is they're not using Twitter as another means to broadcast a one-way message. You know, I like when a company actually dialogues, or a brand dialogues with their fans in the social media. Just creating a fan page in Facebook, having a million followers on Twitter, so what? What are you doing with those million followers on Twitter? If you're not having a dialogue with them, if you're not listening, if you're not spending the time to listen to that conversation and therefore provide commentary to that conversation, then what are you really doing on Twitter? There are a lot of firms that Twitter is their main customer service mechanism. People complain about something, they listen, they fix it. As long as there aren't any constant complaining or whining, do you think opinions are an important aspect of Twitter? Yeah. Because this is how we learn. Social media listening. Do the criteria for a good tweet apply to good statuses on Facebook? Not the way the study was set up, no. Because Facebook, you can have much longer posts, you can have significantly more detail. Facebook is less about immediacy. I have a very hard time saying that you could easily translate the stuff that was in that article to Facebook. Was the study good enough to do such generalizations? I don't think you should take this article as canon. You know, it gives you a glimpse into the fact that there are certain categories of things that are more popular versus other. Do I think it's absolutely universal? I have a harder time with that. I do. what do people find as entertaining based on your audience? What do people find as entertaining based on? I don't know. Your audience has to determine what's entertaining. They're gonna know. I'm not sure we're trying to get at it with this question. How do you decide if you have too many hashtags? There is a philosophy that if you have a hashtag at all, you have too many hashtags. There are a number of social media people out there that think hashtags are really, really tacky. You know, that if you don't have the followers with your own Twitter stream, then you shouldn't be hashtagging something just so you can be heard by a broader community. The problem with hashtags is because anybody could use it, all of a sudden you have 20 million people a minute talking about the blackout at the Super Bowl. And then there's so much noise that none of it's meaningful. You can have too many hashtags. And I sent you the little video from Justin Timberlake and Jimmy Fallon. It kind of makes it show there's just too many hashtags. How credible are the findings in this article of the study, admittedly including a narrow group of participants? Again, I wouldn't call this article canon. I think it's neat. I think it's something to think about. I think that you should think about that there's categories of tweets. How is it possible that only 36% of tweets are worth reading? I think this is actually a quite high number. In my opinion, I think it's a lot lower than that. I'm going to put it 20% or lower, in my opinion. But that's my opinion. Wouldn't opinions and complaint be worth reading to gain customer feedback? Yes. Now remember, this study here was not from a B2B scenario from a social media listening perspective. This was from a B2C scenario or a consumer-to-consumer scenario. So gaining customer feedback wasn't the goal of any of the 8 categories or the study itself. Can a company do as much damage as benefit with Twitter? Absolutely, positively. The upside to Twitter is it gives a voice to everyone. It gives a power. Anybody can. The downside to Twitter is you can make a mistake. Someone in your company way down the totem pole could say something that they never had the ability to say something before, and guess what? There's whistleblowing on Twitter. There's NSA, not actually NSA, but some kind of breach of information that happens all the time on Twitter. You have politicians who, make many malfunctions with Twitter. Yes, lots of damage can be done with Twitter. That's the Web 2.0 world. If you have two-way, the benefit and damage could potentially be just as strong in either way. How often do people unfollow others on Twitter because their frequency of tweets are not worth reading? Do people take the time to usually unfollow others, or they just skim over their tweets? More people ignore the majority of their followers. More people skim over the majority of their followers. But there are a number of software programs that help you delete lame duck followers, basically. They're not very hard to find. How many of those 500 million users are bots? I have no idea, but it's a sizable number, and people complain about it all the time. Duplicate accounts. Yeah, it exists. Off the top of my head, I don't know of a study that can actually pinpoint the number with any kind of an accuracy. But do bots exist? Yes. Are they common? Yes. Why do they think that a lower number... Why do they think it's a lower number than I would expect? It's considerably high. I think it's considerably high. I don't know what the number is, but I'm not... they're saying half... there's no question that, I know I have to take things with a grain of salt, that there could be bots out there, and the bots exist. Why couldn't the researchers find a better mix of raters? It's an academic study. You have to limit... You can't... there's only so much... A professor only has so much time to be able to do a study, and you have certain parameters that you're using to do the study. Is Twitter good for every discipline? Are there some things that life where Twitter doesn't hold any value? Well, if immediacy is not part of the equation, then you could ignore Twitter. Really. I mean, Twitter does have its limitations, mainly the number of characters that you could put out, and mainly Twitter's not email that just because you send a tweet out doesn't mean anybody's going to see it. You know? With Twitter planning its IPO and the concerns will affect the number of users and new registers, how does Twitter avoid a possible black eye? Well, I'm fascinated by this IPO scenario because I'm really, really curious how they are going to have to legally define the number of users and new registers, because they've been always squishy about how they calculate those numbers. So I'm very curious. I like the word used, squishy, meaning, very not well defined. Does the unprofessionalism and informal nature of Twitter ever become a problem for companies? It can. If there are companies that are a very top-down oriented, hierarchical type structure, Twitter's going to be a problem. If you have a scenario like Zappos, then Twitter's not a problem. Is tweeting effective in business world? Is it effective in the business world? And if so, why? There's not enough here on this question. Twitter can be very effective based on what you want to accomplish. Carl Icahn is doing a very good job with Twitter right now and boosting up interest in Apple. No ifs, ands, or buts. Okay. Lots of questions. I hope I answered most of them well. I'm sure there are some that you might have more detail that you want to get from me. I have no problem with you sending me a follow-up email and asking for further detail on anything in particular. Okay? Thank you for your time. I'm going to try to create more videos.